Dance during this time finally became more of an art used for entertainment rather than for religious practices. A key aspect was the use of masks. Masks were used to perform two types of Greek chorus dances, Courtex and Emilia. Courtex is described as lively and obscene, whereas Emilia is described as stately and noble. As time went on, the Romans heard of the Greek ideas and greatly admired them. Through this came the birth of pantomime, which later plays a key role in romantic ballets. The first type of dance to arise during the Middle Ages is described as a village folk dance or a peasant folk dance. This type of dance includes little to no technique, but was danced due to the sheer fact that these peasants needed something to use to help them escape from their harsh living conditions. The costuming of village folk dances consisted of long dresses with many layers, made of wool. Dyes were very common, so even lower class peasants frequently wore colorful clothing. Often, these dresses were paired with a woolen cowl to protect their heads, worn with boots. Men typically wore a short woolen tunic belt at the waist over short woolen trousers. Here demonstrated is a common village folk dance. As you can tell, these dances were very lively and involved many small hops, skips, as well as small kicks. Oftentimes these dancers used a series of formations and also many circular motions. These dances are described as spontaneous and unorganized. Hence, there was no real technique behind them. Soon enough, medieval court dances arose due to the influence of peasant folk dances. Unlike the peasant folk dances, court dances involved people of status, therefore the dresses were much more extravagant. These dresses were often made of more expensive materials such as silk. Women's dresses were often embroidered, and some women paired their dresses with fur and jewelry, depending on the wealth. Despite being more extravagant, the dresses were still floor-length and often worn with heels. As for the dancing, most of the principles remained the same, being that there was no real technique behind the movement and that there was a series of circular movements. But unlike the peasant dances, court dances were described as structured and organized.
The costuming of the Renaissance era was very beautiful and ornate. The dresses and articles of clothing were very heavy and restrictive, and they affected the movement in that way. The costumes were pieces of art themselves, as the Renaissance era was a rebirth and return to the celebration of art. Women wore long-sleeve gowns with high necklines, especially in ballet decor. Men had extravagantly elegant costumes as well that featured high collars. The Renaissance was a time to celebrate art, beauty, and entertainment, especially within dance and costuming.
While watching the Renaissance dancing, you can note that the movements were very small and not very complex. Most of the dancing consisted of almost stylized walking. In addition, there's no use of the arms or head. You can infer that this would be due to the fact that the clothing during this time was
The Baroque period was a further extension and development of the Renaissance era. As far as costuming goes, women wore corsets which could be difficult to move in. Men as well wore tight lacing and had high ruffles around the neck. The dancing could be seen as very primitive ballet. It involved the very beginnings of the use of plie, releve, and turnout. The movement was quite small yet refined, partially due to the restrictive nature of the costuming. Wigs and headpieces were worn as well, as the dancing involved more character work. These headpieces could be quite heavy as well and restrict movement of the head and neck. The costumes were still very formal and beautiful in fashion.
While watching the Baroque dancing, the dancing became much more involved. The head and arms became more heavily used, and it is easy to see that the arms were very precise during this time. In addition, the use of turnout increased. While the Renaissance dancing was not very complex, the Baroque dancing can be described as controlled, well-defined, oftentimes containing rapid footwork, while all seeming to be effortless.
Fewer nobles were appearing in the ballets. During this time, ballet was becoming less of a form of social entertainment and more professional. Dance soon moved from the court to the theater, which required dancers to be well trained with technique for the growing audience. Marie de Camargo, also known as Camargo, was a Belgian dancer. Many know her to be one of the first dancers to wear ballet slippers instead of heels, the first to wear tights and calf-length skirts, and the first to execute the entrechâte. Camargo being the first to wear shorter skirts enabled her to be able to execute the entrechâte. Another infamous rule breaker of this time was Marie Salé. Though these two women had similar names, they were tremendously different. Marie Salé was known for her dancing without a mask. This was to emphasize the facial dramatic expression. She was also known for her breaking custom by removing her corset and dancing in a Greek robe, which she did in her own ballet. People adored her for her stunning grace and emotional expression. There were many innovations during this time. During this time, the point she was created. This was to create the effect of defying gravity or weightlessness. The early point shoe was made of a cloth slipper with extra padding in the toe area for the ballerina to balance on point for a few seconds. This soon led to the creation of pas de deux to help the ballerina balance.